Boom, I love that intro so much. Good God. Welcome back to the Canadian Real Estate Channel. My name's Adam JD Martin. Tonight, I'm going to be your host, and we are going to be talking about houses that are listed currently in Southwestern Ontario for under $300,000. We've also got a really cool news article that Peter, the producer, pulled up for you guys and shared to you on our Instagram channel earlier this week. And if you guys didn't know, we actually do have an guys are tuning in here on YouTube tonight, but we do have an Instagram channel where Peter makes these really excellent carousels that share local news with you guys. And I think it's a great way for us to stay in touch outside of this Tuesday evening. So if you're not already following the Instagram channel, get on over there. The link's in the description. Make sure you go over there and follow us there because we're sharing stuff like that all the time. And we have stories, and we also aggregate our clips there, our little short cuts of videos that we've already produced. So you can see there on the little ticker that Peter's created just now, which is @Canada_REI. So if you're looking for us on Instagram, it's @Canada_REI. That's Canada Real Estate Investing, obviously. We're not just making stuff up here. Welcome, Elizabeth from Vancouver. I love that. We have terrible coverage of Vancouver right now. And so one of the things that we're constantly pushing for is for people to suggest real estate professionals for us to talk to in your local areas, or investors to talk to that you find impressive or that you've taken some mentorship from. We're always looking for people that we find inspiring, and we'd love to showcase them on the channel because we're always trying to learn as well. And the spirit of this channel, Elizabeth, if this is your first time here, it's real people doing real shit, right? And so that's why I'm going to join on a Tuesday. I'm traveling right now. I'm actually in Las Vegas. It's finally been sunny here. I've done streams before from Las Vegas where I'm like, it's supposed to be the desert and it's not hot. Today, it's freaking hot. Although they have this wind here that's quite devilish. And we always start our stream out on Tuesday nights by having a beer together, right? The last few weeks has been terrible because I've been sick, and I am not sick tonight. In fact, I've been sitting on a patio having sunny beers after a nice big hike. So today, in the spirit of being in the desert, I'm having a ranch water. And if y'all haven't had a ranch water before, I'm telling you right now, that's it. Go do it. It's like, it's agave. So it's like basically a freaking cactus and some lime in a can. And it's bloody well great. So have yourself a ranch water, get out in the sun. I saw recently they are available now at the LCBO, so the Liquor Control Board of Ontario. I'm sure they're available also in Vancouver because you guys are right above Texas. So that's where they're going to come from. You guys definitely have ranch waters. Elizabeth, get yourself a ranch water. But tonight, we're going to be looking at this article first, and then we're going to cover some listings because we had actually somebody in the comments, which I also encourage you to go jump in on, is get in on the comments and be like, hey, because we do these market updates. Somebody was like, where's Chatham at? And that's my question too. And so I actually haven't looked at Chatham for a very long time since our business was operating in Chatham, and we sold a lot of properties there. And Fort Mac in the house. Let's go, Eddie. Let's go, dude. Let's go. Oh, that's wicked. Fort Mac's got to be wild for real estate, especially for investors, because it's so up and down, right? It's following obviously the oil market, which is really quite an interesting market and very different than what we typically talk about here on the channel, because we're so about the fundamentals. Like, we're so about investing for cash flow and making sure that things are predictable and, most importantly, boring. So it's interesting to come from Fort Mac and jump in. So I hope you get some value out of this. Sorry to Edward and Elizabeth that we're going to primarily be focusing on neighborhoods in Southwestern Ontario for this live stream. But what I'm going to be talking about is a combination of not only just the properties that we're going to showcase, but also just sort of the theory or the discussion that goes into how you would analyze these deals. So I think that's the actual important takeaway from these streams, as well as obviously building your network. So Edward, meet Elizabeth. Elizabeth, meet Edward. And welcome to the Canadian Real Estate Channel. And if you're watching this as a playback, the chat's obviously fire. So get in here on Tuesdays. We're here basically every Tuesday, except if I'm flying. And if I am flying, I'll be back the next week, and we can have a cool discussion about wherever the hell I am and what sort of ranch water I'm drinking. So tonight, let's jump right in. I'll bring up, hey, Ben's in the chat. He said he'd have to miss it. He's here every week. He's here every single freaking week just to tell me that he can't watch the stream. He'll have to watch the playback. So Ben, I don't know what happened. Hopefully your day didn't go to hell. because obviously it's great to have you here, but that's not typically your schedule. So I hope your day's going okay. But yeah, anyways, let me pull up my screen here, and you'll have to apologize me looking over there because I'm, again, traveling. So I'm using a crazy office setup that's not my typical. And again, apologies for any audio or like video concerns, because the Tuesday live stream is like seriously just for us to hang out, right? We're gonna have a beer, we're gonna chat some real estate, and we're gonna have fun. But you know, the audio can sometimes get a little squirrely because I'm usually traveling. So Peter took some wicked initiative this week and found this article, as he always does, on better dwelling, right? And so I just took a quick peek at this, but I thought it'd be better if we actually read it out together because it's really interesting. And we got some great response and some great feedback on the post that we shared. So this article from Better Dwelling here, it's talking about Canada's National Housing Agency, which they should have put CMHC in the title, because when I read that, I was like, what the hell is Canada's National Housing Agency? But of course, they're talking about CMHC, right? So CMHC has essentially just forecasted home prices to surge by 20% over the next 2 years, which is kind of interesting if you really think about it, because depending on where you're sitting right now, and obviously we have people in the crowd from Saskatchewan, we have people in the crowd from Fort Mac, that's Alberta, and we have people in the crowd from Vancouver, which is, you know, obviously we are covering multiple provinces right now, and we're going all the way over to British Columbia. So it's like, it'll be interesting to hear from your guys' perspective too, and drop us a comment if you agree, but like prices essentially surged by 20 or 30% in a lot of markets here in Ontario during COVID, right? But then they kind of dropped like 20 or 30% after COVID. So CMHC is now forecasting that over the next 2 years, it's going to climb back up 20%, which basically puts us, if you're sitting in Southwestern Ontario, where I know the numbers, that puts us back at COVID peaks, right? Like not quite at the actual peak, but what they're talking about is averages. And you guys know that I have a real problem with statistics on this channel, because I always talk about, and this is something I learned from my economics professor, there's lies, there's damn lies, and then there's statistics, right? Because you can fuck up a good stat any way you want by influencing it with what you share. And so the interesting thing is here, though, that if you actually read the article, right, it says we're essentially expecting to see home prices ripping higher as interest rates are cut. By the end of this year, they expect an average sale price to rise to $711,000, advancing 4.9% from last year. And explosive growth is forecasted for 2025, 9.5%. So and then again, they're forecasting into 26, they're forecasting another 5%. Now, any of you guys, if you have a degree in stats like I do, you're kind of looking at this and you're like, wow, fuck. I mean, you can make the numbers look however you want. But one of the things that actually makes me believe that this is possible is we actually have historical data for it. We actually know that the actual market, right, which is essentially people doing free market consumption, right? Everybody's only ever going to transact at a price where they meet value, right? And that's sort of where the equilibrium price is for a market. It's like, if I agree that a house is worth the new average that they're saying here, which is $711,000, if I'm willing to pay that, then that's actually what it's worth. And so the interesting thing that I find with this is that given we saw this during COVID, I can totally see this coming back. And I have been talking about this too, but you know, there's a difference between talking about it on the Canadian Real Estate channel and having Canada's National Housing Agency talk about it, right? So when CMHC talks about it, you got to know they got somebody way smarter than me in the back room crunching numbers on a computer eating pizza, right? Like this dude has never left the house, right? He's still in mom's basement, but he's like a tech nerd and just watching stats. And that's who works at CMHC, right? They're freaking nerds. They're not like outgoing, crazy traveling people on YouTube. These are actually intelligent people. So we got to listen to them a little bit. But I've totally been saying, like, once you see that high, show me any other market or any other statistic that never goes back to an all-time high when it's a good like real estate, right? This is actually a commodity, whether people want to talk about it like that or not. Everybody needs somewhere to live. And the fact that not everybody owns their home doesn't matter, because somebody must own the home in order for the renter to exist, right? Like the renter can't rent if there's no home. And so by that logic, everybody owns a home. Like the home is owned somewhere. And that means everybody has to transact. How do you transact? You transact at market prices, right? And market price is whatever somebody's willing to pay. So if we know people are willing to pay that, they will be willing to pay that again. And so that's what's actually really fascinating here. And so the rest of this article is kind of just BS. And this is where, again, like I get kind of salty about stats, because you can massage the numbers however you want. But one thing is true. When you say a number as an average is going to rise by 20%, that means that there are outliers to the mean, right? So everything regresses to the mean, and you guys can picture a simple bell curve to imagine that. Like the most frequency is around an average, right? So if you just look at a straight line of price from 0 to maximum, the most frequent, like you're going to have the largest count of numbers inside that average. Like it's going to be closest to the average. And that's what builds that nice bell curve for you, right? But that doesn't mean that you will be the average seller, right? Because you're going to choose as real estate investors to strategically improve your properties. And what that means is by doing things like renovating the kitchen, the bathroom, the landscaping, the lighting, the paint, right? We're going to do all those strategic renovations. We're going to add bedrooms, right? If it's possible, we're going to add entire units now, because people are doing so many secondary dwelling units. We're going to add so much value as investors that we're actually almost likely never to be around the mean. We're likely to be the outlier if we're going to be selling a property. Now, what we're looking to do is purchase below the mean, right? Because we want to buy terrible properties and make them better properties. That's like the entire ethos of being a real estate investor, is to take something shitty and make it better, right? And so that's where things like the average are really interesting, because what that's saying is a lot of houses are going to be around the 711,000 mark. But that also means that 50%-ish, right? It's never really 50, but close to 50% are going to be less than that, right? Which means we can transact a lot in the space that's below 711,000. And all that means for us that are investing for cash flow means we have to find opportunities that are essentially close to the 1% rule and below 711,000, so we can get them for lower than the average and then sell them for higher than the average, because we actually did the work to improve them. So it's a really fascinating statement here by CMHC. And honestly, I'm here for it. Like it's going to happen. There's no way. And I'm kind of shocked actually in this article. Maybe the most shocking thing is that they've only suggested that we're going to go the rest of this year with a 4.9% increase in average price. And you might be saying like, Adam, dude, 4.9% is a big increase. And it is. But what I'm looking at and benchmarking now is the psychosis that happened during COVID. And so if people were willing to pay 30% more than they are now, 4.9 is not a great increase, right? 4.9 is a good way to get us closer to where we were. But it's not like some massive increase, right? That's like relatively healthy. As we always used to say, you can kind of bank on 5% a year appreciation. If you were just looking at like a 10-year time scale, where some of those years are going to be 8 and some of them are going to be 4 and some of them are going to be 6 and then 4.5. And, again, building out averages. And that's why averages suck, because it just doesn't really take into account the real picture of things. So this is fascinating, but that kind of leads us into our discussion about what I wanted to talk about tonight, which is properties under 300,000, right? Because if the mean is 711 across the board, we know that a bunch of data is going to be skewed by places like Toronto, places like Vancouver, Calgary starting to get super hot, Edmonton, right? If we're looking at Saskatchewan, because it sounds like we got Ben from SK, we could look at Regina, we could look at Saskatoon. If we want to go East Coast, there's Halifax really screwing up numbers there for us. Like, there's all sorts of ways to mess around with the statistics. But what we can never forget is that the fundamentals, again, of cash flow investing are always the same. It doesn't matter. Like if you're paying $3 million, that doesn't matter compared to paying 300,000 as long as the rents justify it. And that's again where our entire point is. The purchase price, and this is something I used to harp on when we were doing wholesaling a lot. It's really funny because like the purchase price almost doesn't matter. And it really doesn't matter if we're talking about long-term investing. And I know people will get so pissed off about that because it's counterintuitive, but like the purchase price, like we're talking about $500 on a mortgage per $100,000 is roughly your estimate, right? So, you know, torch me in the chat if like you're like, oh, it's $600 per 100 now, or 700 even. Okay, whatever. Like just show me the rent, right? Like show me the revenue that it can generate. And that's what makes it an asset. When you buy it as a personal residence, every $1,000 matters like hell because you're never going to recover that until you go to sell it. And hopefully there's been appreciation, right? And so purchase price on a personal residence is extraordinarily important. But as we become investors and we think more and more about it, we're talking about increments of $500 to $700, let's call it these days, because rates can be crazy. $500 to $700 per 100,000. Like, if an extra 10,000 screws your deal up, you're telling me in practice that $50 a month just fucked up your investment. If $50 a month can wreck your investment, it never was an investment, right? It was a hobby. It was like a passion. It was like a weird flex. You're like, I needed to say I had 3 more doors. And so I bought this stupid triplex, but it loses me a bunch of money. Like that's not the flex. The flex is replacing your income with money that other people go to work for and pay down your principal while they're at it, right? Like it's a whole purchase price just doesn't matter when we're talking about increments of 500 per 100,000. I just wrapped up a deal this week for a client where we were on the buy side. And the idea there was like, we're negotiating, right, on all these terms. And of course, I asked for a vendor take back because as a responsible investor, I'm going to try and find any advantage I can to preserve liquidity and increase our buying power. And that's the best way to do it. So, you know, that's what I asked for. And we were kind of getting screwed up about this weird discussion between, you know, increments of like $10,000 or $20,000. And my point to everybody at the table, right, the seller and the buyer, my point was if $20,000 screws this up, you were so fucking wrong in the beginning that we're probably not even on the same page, right? We're talking about 2 different things. And so let's all get on the same page and understand that $20,000 would be 20% of 500. 20% of 5 is 1. That's $100 per month. 1 brown bill. Guys, you spent that this week on like half a tank of gas. Stop. Just stop. That's not what investing is about, right? $100 difference is not the difference between an investment or not a difference. Or sorry, not an investment. That's just not. Like it just never was an investment if that's the point. So that's when we all have to go back and start leveraging the calculator that I always use here, which is like a 2-minute way of analyzing a deal that will tell you right away if you're totally screwed or not. And that's like the whole point of it is to have a 20-second solution that can give you 10 years of insight on the property, right? That's the whole point of having this calculator. If you guys don't have the calculator already, go download it. It's adamjdmartin.com/learn, right? Because I want you guys to learn because this stuff is really important and it's so easy once you get it. But with all that being said, you're probably just sick of me yapping right now and need to stop zooming in on my face. So let me take you over to the MLS and we'll start looking at actual properties. So in the comments, somebody had mentioned, where's Chatham? And for those of you in Alberta and Saskatchewan and British Columbia, Chatham's this horrible little town. Well, it's here. It's this horrible little town, sort of. It really is truly southwestern Ontario. So, you know, it's like it's in the States basically. And that's what it feels like when you're there. It feels like a poor state in the States. You know, it's like kind of a Detroit, but not really. We reserve that for Windsor. But, it's over here. So if you look at it like, if you're over here, Ontario is absolutely massive. So we got people in here from, nobody from Manitoba yet, but I don't think Manitoba really counts, or Quebec. So, Regina's way over here. Fort Mac's like over here somewhere. There it is, Fort Mac, right there. Boom. So it's really far from you guys. So I understand if this is sort of irrelevant, but what Chatham represents for us here in southwestern Ontario, if I can find the damn place, is this little island. Okay. It really is a bit of an island because it's sandwiched between two major cities. So it is between Windsor and London. Okay. But it's like farm country that totally surrounds it. But the thing is that Chatham is really fascinating in terms of the culture, right? And yes, I agree with Rockpile here. The suburbs of Windsor are gorgeous, right? Because it's a commuting town into the States for work, and there's a whole bunch of work. If you guys, okay, guys, public service announcement. I get really crazy on these Tuesday videos. I'm always actively drinking on them. If I say something crazy, just go back and watch the pre-recorded stuff. On all of our market update videos, I tell you why you should invest in these markets. And then I come on here and I shit talk them, right? But you need both, okay? You need skepticism and you need optimism. It's part of life. It's like you got to hear both sides of it. So when I'm telling you Windsor's terrible, it's just because like it kind of is, but it's getting better and there's a lot of jobs and there's a ton of employment and vacancy rates are really low. Chatham is the thing that's between Windsor, which is actually a mega city and has like the only casino that's worth going to in Canada, and everybody works in the United States and there's tons of jobs. London is like this huge major tech hub and also banking hub, which most people don't know. And they've got like a bazillion hospitals and schools, right? And so both of these cities are really quite something. Chatham sandwiched in the middle in a bunch of farm country, and it's pretty far away from everything else. But what's happening there is really fascinating. There is interesting culture, right? There is like really interesting employers. There's interesting places to go. They've got this really developed downtown that people are starting to really enjoy. And for a long time, people have been looking there to invest because the prices are so low, right? It's so cheap. And so a lot of people will go there and buy like a really, really, really cheap house and then either commute out of the city for work or just live there and not need to work at any type of great job because the damn price is so cheap, right? Cost of living is pretty low. And so it's an interesting city. So somebody had commented, where's all the Chatham listings? And I said, well, come back and we'll look at some. So today I wanted to do a bit of a theme, which is like listings under 300,000. And I realized that this is kind of a cheat when it's 299. Is that really under 300? Come on. First of all, that's like a listing strategy so that it fit into my search. So I guess it is working. Nice strategy, but I don't know if you should do that. So here we go. We got 126 Gray Street. For those of you that don't know Gray Street, I mean, Gray Street, I don't know a lot about Chatham. Let's just say that. We've sold a lot of properties in Chatham in the past, but we were selling houses at like, $90,000. So it didn't matter. If it was like the worst street in the world, it didn't really matter. If it was $110,000, it didn't matter, right? Now I'm starting to see prices because I haven't looked at Chatham in years. And now I'm looking over here and it's $300,000 for this thing. And I don't know whether that's right or not, but when we were selling properties in Chatham, the rents were never, ever, ever anywhere near what we could get in London or what I was getting in Windsor, right? Because I've owned properties in both. And so I have to be a little bit skeptical, okay? But let's walk through it and just see if there's some potential here for us, because what we have here appears to be actually a renovated property. I mean, this is nice. Like, this is your average kind of barn board, right? Luxury vinyl. They did a nice job cleaning this up. This looks really nice because it's all white. I love those Costco lights too. Life hack, Costco with these flush mount lights. Insane. And what's even better than Costco, okay? Home Depot, stop going there for lighting. Better than Costco is Amazon. If you guys aren't using Amazon yet for your lighting, you're spending way too much money. You're absolutely in the wrong. So get over to Amazon because they'll even sell you something to replace this goddamn hideous fan, okay? Why would you do this renovation and leave that? Like, even when you took the photo, you probably should have known, like, that ain't it. And for $30 on Amazon, you could have had a nice flush mount light there and delete the fan. Especially because it's forced air, right? Like, it's forced air, so there should be AC, or they have the capacity at least to add AC if there's not. But what's going on with the fan? Just get rid of that, please. Anyways, I mean, paint's nice. Cabinets they left, right? Those aren't new cabinets. Those are the originals, or at least like whatever was there before. Tiny little backsplash. That's kind of cute. I really hate when people, I hate this. Okay. And again, when you come here on a Tuesday, I'm not shit talking the listing. Okay? It sounds like I am, but I'm not. I'm telling you what to do as investors to avoid somebody like me looking at this and being like, what the fuck, man? Why would you do that? So what happened here is they're like, you know what? It's like $50 to do this little backsplash, and it's like $100 to do the rest. We're not going to do the rest. Okay. We're going to save that. That's the $50 we save, because that $50, that's going to make the difference. We're already over budget. We're already taking too long in this project. It ain't going to work. We got to save that 50 somehow. And it's the backsplash is where we're going to save it. We're going to save it so that every time you look at the kitchen, you wonder, why does the backsplash end there? And you get to say at the party, you get to say, yeah, we saved $50 on that, boys. That's a case of beer. We saved a case of Coors Light on that backsplash right there. Okay. That's exactly what happened. And that's why the averages never work out the way you think, because some people save $50 on the backsplash and trade off like $20,000 of value when I look at the photo, and some people do the work, right? It's like, that's just as easy as it is. Like, it's simple. It's not that hard. It's just like, oh no, they did it on both sides. We got to start cheers moments for like when people are crazy. That's a cheers moment right there. Both sides? What the fuck is going on? Oh no, there's a fire extinguisher. Oh my God, they saved it on both sides, but it's there on the fridge. Hold on. So there's like an original backsplash or like some kind of whatever that is. And then they stop it, right? For both cabinets. Hold on, I can't scroll over. They stop it for both sides of the freaking countertop, but it's behind the fridge. Dude, please, somebody make an offer on this. I'd be happy to. If you want to make an offer on this, give me a call. We'll write a cover letter that says like, okay, listen, 20,000 off because you didn't do the $40 of extra work for that. Anyways, moving right along because I just can't. And like the other thing, God. Okay, guys, when you're renovating, please understand that smoke kills colors. Okay. So when you have white things that used to be white and it's like an oven fan, like dude, you can't paint everything bright white and then leave the goddamn fan to be old yellow. Everybody's seen Old Yeller. It didn't end well. Okay. That's Old Yeller right there. God damn it. This was not supposed to be a trash talk video. I was actually kind of excited that properties were still under 300,000, but Jesus, man. Moving right along. Excellent front door. Excellent front door. And it looks like we've even got some kind of like security or something. That's interesting. Original tile in there, the 12 by 12s. I really dislike those. Everybody's going for 24 by 12s now. I think that's the right play. Again, tile works super cheap. This is the original or like the older vanity as well. So I don't love that. I do like the tripod though. That's fun. Pete, was that you? Pete, get in the comments right now. You'd do something like that, wouldn't you? You'd set up a tripod and shoot right at the mirror. That's what I would do. That's what I would do. The other thing too, guys, when you're doing these renos, like I know this is an annoying expense and everybody forgets to budget for it, but the outlets, like the receptacles, again, this is one of those like, yeah, let's spend $300 and do the receptacles because we just painted the goddamn room bright white. And now you've got this mustard colored receptacle from 1983. And it just ain't it. The other thing I have a real pet peeve about, guys, and I'm really sorry to whoever the listing agent is on this. I'm not trying to be a dick, but gold handles. Gold handles on a renovation, unacceptable. If you renovate it and you're doing this color scheme, which is gray floors, white paint, the handles are black now. Okay, you understand that? Black. Like Henry Ford said, you can have any color you want as long as it's black, because that's the only color that should be if you're going to do that renovation. Just don't do that. You know, you kind of get the same vibes over here, right? With like the old colored door, like just paint that white. You did the light. You did the light. Why wouldn't you do the paint? No backsplash here, by the way, either. I don't really care about this. This is old laminate here, right? Worn down, bit of damage. Not the end of the world. Okay, we got the OG. I love that faucet. That's good. I like that for you. Old tile, not really a big problem. It looks like some renovations started here but didn't get finished. And then, of course, you got the classic, you know, you got the classic basement here. New furnace is really nice. And actually, the water heater looks relatively new. These appliances look like they'd be relatively new as well. Nice panel updated. I'm always sus when you see the appliances up off the ground like that, because you don't know, like, was that basement wet? Is there an issue there? Looks like this like entrance is pretty nice. The decking's nice. It looks like it's in pretty good shape, actually. Possibly even painted like in the last couple of years. Not bad. Little patio's good. I mean, you could touch this up, but you know, you're not necessarily going to get more rent for that. So here we go. Where this becomes important, right? So we just spent a bunch of time nitpicking this, but the actual reality of why this listing is actually pretty interesting, even after all my bitching, right? The bitching is because you could get a higher appraisal and you could make me look at it a lot closer as a consumer if you had done those little touches, right? Which would have cost what we talked about there. Those fixes would have been like $1,000 or less. So just do the damn work. If it's $1,000, get it done. But where Goran has it right here, Todorovic, he's got it right here though on the price because it's a duplex, right? A 3-bed duplex on the main with the kitchen. We can talk about whether or not it's a large kitchen or not, but and then a one bed, 1 bath, right? So, you know, when we look at that, like when we come over to the calculator, you're like, okay, well, it's a duplex. I didn't really realize it was a duplex, right? And so you just say, well, okay, it's basically renovated, so we'll call it like we're not going to do anything to it. We'd maybe do $1,000 because, you know, it's just stupid to leave those details untouched. 0 wholesale fee because it's on the market. Rehab budget, let's just put in $2,000 just to be kind to ourselves. For budgeting purposes, we'll say it would take essentially 3 months in the deal because we're going to have to, well, 4 months. So that's 3 months to close and 1 month to get any new tenants and give us a little bit of overage there. So we'll put 4 months there and there. And then the real question is on a duplex like that, what's the rent, right? And this is where you're going to have to bear with me because I don't know. And one of the reasons why I don't know is because my license is limited to GDAR, which is like, for whatever reason, the absolute criminal organization that is the realtors, right? Like whatever they want to call themselves. But like the realtors themselves are actually criminal for regulating things the way that they do. So Chatham's not on my board. And by not having board access to whatever board Chatham follows under, I can't get any information like what the hell things are actually going for rent or sold, right? It's really difficult. And it's honestly criminal that that's allowed. But we can make some assumptions, right? Because there's just basic floor rents, right? And so what we have to think about is for a 3-bed, 1 bath, like what's the rent got to be on something like that? Because I'll tell you, in London, that's going to be like $2,000, right? That's $2,000 plus, right? Minimum 1,800 plus utilities. So what I think is fair here is we'd probably budget something like We could be conservative and say 1,800, so like the very low end, right? Because it's actually in pretty good shape. And if we did that $2,000 to swap out the things and actually finish the backsplash, we might be able to get it to look pretty nice. So we could go 1,800 on that, and that would be inclusive of utilities, right? For how my sheet works. And then what do we do for the one bed? Well, the thing about one bed, one baths is it's not actually that much marginally cheaper to rent when it comes to a one bed. Like most of your cost of a 3-bed is getting the cost of a one bed out of the way. And then you're paying a bit of a premium for the second and third bed. So that other one bed, I mean, I got to think that's at least 1,100, right? Maybe I'm crazy. Let's just put 1,000, right? And then that puts us at $2,800. Well, $2,800 is damn well close to the 1% rule. And so what you can see here on my sheet is that if you were to try and flip it, because there's not really anything you can do to add strategic value to the building, you're not going to end up with a profit. You're actually going to end up losing $32,000 by only putting in $2,000. And the reason for that is there's all those costs, right? You've got legal fees, land transfer tax, lender and broker fees, down payment, realtor. It's a whole thing. But if you kept it, and this is what we always suggested for Chatham, is you don't try and come into Chatham and flip the damn thing. You come into Chatham so that you can rent it out, right? And so what would happen here is if you just bought the damn thing for $300,000 and you were able to get $2,800, including utilities. Okay, sounds hard not to in Canada, especially Southwestern Ontario, to get $2,800 for 2 freaking units. We got legal fees in there, land transfer, we got lender and broker fees, we got the down payment, we got the mortgage cost at 6% interest, by the way, is what my mortgage calculator runs at 6% interest. You're still making $529 a month. Okay, cash flow. Now, is the market going to appreciate 30% like the rest of Ontario? Probably not. Like just realistically, like it just won't, right? Because 30% on 100, on 300, it's going to go up to 400. Do I see Chatham houses being 400? I don't know. I don't think so. But then again, I never saw Chatham duplex being 300. So anything's possible in that regard. But all I'm trying to say really here with this is like, it's possible. Right? 300,000 at first I was like, fuck, I don't know. And then you look at the pictures and you're like, God, I get less into this every time I look at it. And then you think, well, you know what? The minimum rents that you have to be commanding in these areas have to be that. Like if they're not, then I'm totally wrong. Somebody torch me in the comments. But that's a deal. $500 a month. And what's your total cash required? 76 grand. 76 grand. So it's an 8%, 8.3% ROI. You know, you end up with your 76 stuck in the deal, but you're making 500 bones a month for life, right? And they're paying down your mortgage all the way. So I'm kind of into that. I kind of like that deal. And it's under 300,000. That brings us to our next property, which is on Wood Street, which I'm actually terribly unfamiliar with. But again, we'll just stick to the numbers because I think that's what's really important here. And it's essentially the same deal, but 10K off. And then you got to look at it. And this is where the numbers will not be as exciting. Okay. And the reason for this is because it's not a duplex, right? And so you can see, and this is sort of here for a comparison for you guys. Nice shop, nice garage. But you can see here what's up. So like, when I see this as an outsider too, and this is kind of interesting for you guys in Alberta, in British Columbia, in Saskatchewan, it's thinking about things like this. Like, I don't know about this neighborhood. I don't know if it's great or not. What I do know is this house does not look like the house we just looked at. And Gray Street is kind of shitty. We're not going to lie about that. It's not a good street. We don't know how good this house is, but we do know that it's basically the same price and none of the work is done. Low key, if you ever are doing a walkthrough and you see a bunch of aquariums, I've never had good experience that way. So that's something I look out for as a flag. Flooring, you got to do it. Okay, the flooring looks like shit. The paint looks terrible. You got to paint the trim. You got to paint the walls. You got to paint the freaking frames around the windows. These ceiling fans just got to go. The registers look terrible. You can just spray paint those. The outlet, all the receptacles have been painted over, so you should probably switch out the receptacles and covers, right? So budget for that. Getting into the basement here. Really exciting stairs. Doesn't look like there's a railing. Probably not code. You're going to have to fix that. Cabinets. Well, not new. Not new. Boob light. Gotta love a boob light. Everybody loves boobs. Nobody loves a boob light, though. I'll tell you that for free. Flooring, right? We're not even going to talk about the backsplash because, well, they painted the tile. They painted the top. God damn it. They painted the top. They painted this fucking trim thing here. The back of the countertop somehow. They painted that. Oh my God. This is going to be melamine paint on the countertop. I'm almost going to guarantee that. And they painted the tile while they were doing it. So, brother, that ain't it. That ain't it. Rockpile is asking, which is a valid question, aquariums equals potential water damage or what? Yeah. In my experience, and this is not going to be all of them because you just can't do that, but man, water everywhere. Fucking water in the floors, water on the walls, crazy stains for whatever reason, like smells, all of that. And where are they draining these things? Right. And so I still have a building that I can't get the goddamn aquarium rocks out of the, I don't even know what that's called, but like, you know, the filter thing on the shower, because there's no other way to drain these damn things. You dump it in the toilet or you dump it in the shower. And now you got to know there's a pink fluorescent stone still lodged in one of my shower drains that I'm like, I don't know. I can't get it out of there. I'm sorry. But water damage, humidity, those are all problems that I find. And you just got to question the entire operation at that point. So, moving right along. Counters are a devastation. The cabinets are no better. Looks like this is a laundry room in the bath. So this is probably laundry, and that looks like it'll be a shower. I'm just thinking here, this is probably like shower stuff. So that's probably the shower. You got your attic entrance there, and you got another boob light. Another boob light, but kind of more fancy. This is like the double D of boob lights, I guess. Blue walls, gotta love that. Ceilings do look low. That's a good observation there. Thank you very much, Boohoo. This goddamn thing, I don't know what that is. That could be, oh, it looks like on-demand hot water heater, maybe? Kind of weird spot for it. You would think that'd be in the basement, but whatever. And what's going on here? Is this like one of the filters for the... Oh God, maybe the aquariums like somehow filter through this thing. I don't know. I don't want to get too into the weeds on that, but I don't know what that is. Toilet out of 45. Let's absolutely go. I'd pay a 10K premium just for a 45-degree angle toilet. I'm into that. What's up with all these curtains? Like a double shower? And also, what is going on with this roof line? Like, is that stairs into here? Because there's switches there too. You got to kind of ask about that, right? You got to wonder about that. Oh God, what's going on? Okay, so for some reason I can't scroll. That's not working. Maybe it's working for you guys, but not for me. What's going on here? Oh, it's because I had zoomed in. Okay, here we go. Yeah, that adds up. That adds up. We're going to move right along. But, you know, ceilings, I don't like these ceilings again, just because like that's going to be just the roof line is built like that. And it just sucks. Like there's no way to improve that most of the time. So you got to just live with that. Nice deck, actually. I'm not sure what the hell's going on there. What is that? That's a big box. That's a box coming out of your deck. It's a hot box on your big dick. Nice. Actually, really nice patio pavers here. Oh, hot tub, kind of. Half a hot tub. 3/4 of a hot tub, to be fair. Okay, enough looking at the house. It's 300 grand, right? Or it was what was it, 289? Whatever, let's call it 290. So we saved 10 grand. So go over here to our trusty calculator and we'll say 290. 290. Okay, 290 grand. Rehab budget is not 2,000 because you have to do, what did we say there? You got to do flooring, you got to do the lighting, you got to do some receptacles, you got to do the cabinets, for God's sake. So cabinets, whatever. I mean, it depends what you want to do there, but we'll just put, last time I bought cabinets, it was $5,600. It was slightly smaller space than that. Put 75 just to be nice. 7,500 for that. A couple grand for receptacles and plates and all that dicking around that you have to do. A backsplash is going to be another like 500, I would say. And then you got to do the floors, which is at least another 7,000, 7,500. Right. So we're at, what is that? 75, that's 15, right? Plus 2, that's 17 at least. So we'll make that 20 with some overages. So you got 20,000 rehab budget there. And then where you really get screwed up on this deal, and this is the point I'm trying to illustrate, is the other one, it's in kind of a shittier neighborhood, but you're almost guaranteed to get those floor type rents. The problem is going over here, we don't know about the neighborhood. Maybe it's a great neighborhood, and that would affect, actually, if it is a great neighborhood, it would affect how this ARV works. And we can even just say that like just doing that work alone would make this more valuable. So we could try and say that this would become, 350 grand if we put in 20K of work. That's not unreasonable, right? So, you could say, okay, well, we can make 7.5% return on investment on $93,000 investment. That's a $7,000 net profit. And then that's where like you can somewhat justify it, except for the fact that making 7 grand and risking 100 is not ideal. Because a $7,000 fuck up, like I make those on the daily, right? And so that's where you got to really ask yourself, like, I don't know if that's something I'm willing to tolerate for that reward, right? Like that risk doesn't seem good for that reward. So then we look at the market rents and you got to start asking yourself, well, what the hell is market rent on a full house? Well, we just said a 3-bed would be like maybe 1,800. So what is this, 21? Because it's full house? Well, that's how you lose $400 a month. I don't like that. Even if the rents are way crazier than that. Say it's crazy. Say it's 2,300. Okay, we're losing 200 a month. So the problem is you could flip it and make potentially 7 grand or totally biff the renovation, right? Because we only put a 20K reno there. And that's actually pretty damn, that's not conservative enough for the amount of work that needs to be done. And then you've only got potential rent really at 2,300. Starting to look scared. Starting to look like you're going to lose money either way. And that's where it maybe seems like the price point itself is the most important thing, when really it's not. And you'll remember what I was saying before is it doesn't matter really what you pay on the price point. It matters what the revenue is that you can generate, right? So if it's a 7K profit, it ain't worth it, right? We understand that kind of inherently. And when you look at it on the sheet, you're like, fuck, it's never going to work. You're going to lose money either way. So that's out. That's a total no. We then have another house that's very similar for 279, right? It's a 2-bed, 1-bath. And so we can essentially just assume the same numbers, but the purpose of even looking at this one too is to just compare it, right? Like when we're looking at this house, it's basically the same price and a lot of the work is done. You might gasp slightly when you look at this listing because of the paint, but the paint is very cheap to fix, right? You can see the basement was not finished there. That's okay. That's drywall. That's like 3 grand, right? Maybe 5 because you got to do the ceilings. But you could finish that in a jiff and it wouldn't even matter. It's not gonna, like, your renter doesn't need that, right? Furnace is older for sure. Water heater looks good. Basement looks actually pretty dry too. So when you look at this, like those cabinets are updated, right? Cabinets are updated. The floors are updated. A bit of lighting in here, $30 a piece from Amazon. Not bad. Cabinets updated, flooring updated. So for basically the same price, you're getting a hell of a deal, right? Hell of a deal. Now, our good friend Gordon, he's got a similar listing. I got to, excuse me for just literally 1 second. There's something crazy going on at the door. I'll be right back. Have a beer. While Adam disappears here, I'll pop in to say, what's up, guys? What's going on? Peter, the producer, hanging out in the background. As Adam mentioned at the beginning of the stream here, we'll go over that article. If you're not following us on Instagram, I highly recommend that you do. We post a lot of great stuff on there, Canada_REI. Go check us out. We got a lot of great stuff that we feature on there and show clips in between what you guys have maybe missed if you don't follow along every single video. But Adam's back, so I'll let him get back to it. I'm back. Sorry about that, guys. No, there's a guy replacing the doorbell right now. So it rung like fucking 50 times. And I was like, okay, somebody's dying or like there's an emergency. Just a dude replacing a doorbell. It's not the end of the world. But if somebody rings the doorbell like 50 times, you got to start asking questions. Like, what's actually like, what's up? Yeah, no, I'm like, somebody's literally bleeding out on the street because it's America. That could happen. There was a mass shooting 2 blocks from here yesterday. Oh my God, that's crazy. Yeah. My friends' colleagues were like the victims. It's not ideal. Geez. Yeah, and this is a super nice neighborhood. Like this is not, yeah, it's wild. So anyways, baby, America, fuck yeah. And this is why we invest in Chatham, right? Because it's little America without the shootings. So our boy here who had the first listing that we looked at, he's got another listing here, 15 and 17 Wood Street, which is considerably cheaper, right? And so this is actually the same street too as the last property that we looked at. And if we look at here, we kind of get an insight too, right? Obviously it's rented. And so you can kind of tell like a decent strategy when you're buying a place that's already rented is to look not only at the rent, what you're actually making on the revenue, but look at, who's living there. Because that's information that you get by how people live. This looks like a good renter. This looks like a good tenant. And, the way you tell that is it's pretty clean. It's pretty organized. I mean, there's stuff around, but that's fine. That's totally fine. That's not a bad renter, right? Like this looks like a good tenant. So you got laundry in the kitchen. Obviously, that's not ideal, but it is what it is. And you'd rather have laundry than not have laundry. So you'd rather have it in the kitchen than not have it at all. Nice new vanity, nice new tub, nice new tile on the floor, right? It's kind of hiding there below that rug. You might not be able to see it if you're watching this on a playback, but it's there. It's nice. This other kitchen, not as nice. Old cabinets, old paint, ceiling looks terrible, boob lights. That's how we can probably tell like who's been there longer, right? And if you had to forecast, that'd be the cheaper unit. Vanity is the old style. Flooring's not been updated. Old style linoleum floors. You can tell the ceiling here is getting pretty smoked out by this stove, just by the colors on it. And the range is not ideal. You can see too, like probably you can make some assumptions about what the tenants are doing for work. Small rooms. This is kind of the upstairs room. And that's where you get that wonky roof line that we're all such huge fans of. And you can see like, it's right now being used as kind of like a storage room or like a tool room. Additions. One thing I don't like about properties ever is when they have all these additions. Like this could be one addition, and now this is a second addition, and it's all just kind of branched off this one building. And that's like technically fine if they didn't fuck anything up on the roofs, but that's not ideal, right? And I know this because the house that I grew up in, like you get to winter. And you find out how good the insulation is between those joints and how the weatherproofing is, because that's an actual fucking problem. Like you're going to end up with frozen pipes. You're going to end up with just like extremes, right? It's super hot in the summer and super cold in the winter in there. And so that changes heating, that changes all your expenses, etc. And it's a real thing. Nice new shed with a drainage issue, apparently. Lots of parking. That's something that's really nice about this listing here. Lots of parking. And that's it. And I'm not going to dwell on this too much. It is a duplex, but you're going to, so it's a duplex, right? And it says the one unit is paying $875. And so maybe the other unit comes vacant when you sell. So that is an interesting, that's interesting, right? And the numbers are going to work essentially the same as the first listing we looked at 300 with 2 listings, because you're going to have to do improvements to the building to make it get up to market rent if there is that vacancy. And if there isn't a vacancy, you're going to have some issues there with revenue actually accounting for everything. And that brings us to, I don't know why I brought this up. It was just interesting that the land value of this property in Chatham was $69,000. Obviously a bit of a meme price, but at the same time, $69,000 is cheap when Collingwood, where I'm from, lots are going for like 400,000, right? So 69,000, you could just buy this lot, and it's not a big lot. It's 27 by 104. So it's very deep, but pretty narrow, right? That's actually about half of a lot in Collingwood. So a lot should be 50 by 100. This one's essentially 30 by 100, right? So you're going to build a skinny little house. And what this listing is doing, which is kind of interesting, is they're like, hey, we already have the building permit. We can build this house for you already that we have plans for. And if you go to that listing, you can see it. And essentially they've listed the brand new, like this design, you can buy for $500,000, including the property, which is fine. But, you know, I mean, you're overpaying, right? At 500. I don't think I like that. So that's kind of trash. And then I want to focus our attention now. Actually, I'll address this comment before we get too far. So there's a comment here: living comfortably in Maple, GTA, at $2,000 a month rent. I fear eviction. As a first-time buyer with $180,000 down, I seek a home with a mortgage $2,500 to $3,500 a month. Okay. The interesting thing about this comment is that you mentioned you fear eviction. I'm here to tell you, and you hear it here first, it's very, very hard to evict somebody in Ontario. If you're in the GTA and you get evicted for some illegal reason, your legal representation will be covered and they will owe you a shitload of damages. You will be owed a lot of money. And anybody telling you that they need to evict you, one of the only ways that they'll be able to lawfully do it, as long as you've been paying your rent every month on time and in full, is through an N12. I think it's been a while since I've done an eviction. So let's just see N12 form Ontario. I think it's N12. Yeah, that's right. So an N12 in Ontario is essentially the notice to end your tenancy because the landlord, a purchaser, or a family member requires the rental unit. And so this is where it gets interesting, right? Because what a lot of investors will attempt to do is a rent eviction, right? I need you out because I'm going to do extensive work to the unit, which is like an N13, I'm pretty sure. Or they'll try and do this. I need you out because I need the property. As the owner, I need to live there. But the problem is, more often than not, if they do that eviction, they serve you with proper notice and you actually follow through with getting out of the unit as you are required to lawfully. When you leave, they must occupy the unit for at least 1 year, right? And so when you do receive this, what you want to do is make sure that if they're taking that unit for personal use, that they're actually going to use it for personal use. And if they don't, then you have to pursue them legally, and you will be able to do so with free legal representation, right? And so that's the thing that makes it really tricky, is like the landlord's not going to want to risk that because the fines are actually really extensive. For a corporation, the fines for something like that are like $400,000 or something stupid. And the only reason I know is because I've freaking done it, right? So you shouldn't really fear being evicted unless they're willing to wait 12 months with the unit vacant or with them pretending to live there to re-rent it out. And if you see the advertisement or you see it, come up for rent anywhere else, you're totally in the right to pursue them legally for that. So if you do, like if you're looking to purchase with $180K down, right? First-time home buyers, you can put down like 5-10% with CMHC secured loans. And so what that means is with, but that's CMHC. To do that, you have to stay under $1 million. So you have way more than enough cash to buy under $1 million, right? Because 500,000, 10%, it's 50 grand, right? 900,000 at 10%, it's 90 grand, right? So technically your purchasing power right now is really good. You could buy something almost anywhere as long as the rest of your credit is good. And obviously if you have that type of down payment, you've got great income and you've got a great capacity to save. So I assume your credit's great and I assume your income is great. You should have no problem buying almost anywhere. So, you know, if you don't want to stay in the GTA because it's too expensive or whatever, like, you know, it depends on where you work. It depends on your goals. So I'm happy to have a conversation about that off air. If you want to reach out to me, it's Adam JD Martin on every conceivable social media. AdamJDMartin@gmail.com. Adam JD Martin on Instagram. Adam JD Martin on Facebook. Adam JD Martin is my real estate profile when you look at realtor.ca. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be worried about being evicted. If I was you, I'd stay renting for $2,000 a month forever, right? And keep saving that money and go invest it somewhere else. Buy another rental, right? Don't buy your primary residence with that money. Buy a rental and keep renting. And if you get evicted illegally, well, get up their ass. That's why we have those regulations for people concerned about that exact fact. So you're good on that front. But now I'd like to bring your attention real quick because I know we're probably going a little bit over time here, but this is important. And it's important because I think London is much more predictable. And I'm going to bring us over to London now, up the highway from Chatham. London's much more predictable. Okay. It's way larger in terms of population, and its largest employers are way more stable than anybody in Chatham. And I don't care what you have to say about that. If you're from Chatham, you're wrong. Okay. TD Canada, TD Bank is the largest employer in London. And after that, it's like the hospitals and the universities. So they're not going anywhere. And that draws a lot of labor into the market. And there's just been really crazy stats here for decades. So when I see a listing come up sub 300 in London, we have to talk about it on the stream. And being the theme of under 300 today, this is important. This listing's insane, man. 244.9. Now you can see it's a small, modest house. It's not really a showstopper. It just kind of is what it is. You can see the flooring is shit. You can see the boob lights exist. Of course, the theme of actually, that's what our show should have been titled, Peter. Boob lights are us. So we got more boob lights here. We got more shitty flooring. We got holes in the drywall. We got the most tragic excuse for putting up drywall I've ever seen in my entire life. Peter could do it better than that. Even I could do it better than that. And that's saying something for sure. So that's awful. Rip that down, redo it. Right? Inside here, the renovations have not been completed. Somebody ran out of money. Somebody ran out of money. Somebody ran out of money. All they've done for you is a bunch of the work. Okay? They've taken a bunch of the shit out and saved you a bunch of fees. Yeah, you remember the roof? The roof's weird. Okay, there's something weird about the roof. The nice thing is the roof's so damn small you can pick it up yourself and put a beam in with your other hand, right? It's a very small property. This looks like my house on Princess that I bought years ago for a similar price, right? So the thing is, this is like 5 years later, and I bought that price for 180. Things have gone up 5 or 10% per year since that, and then a 30% bump on COVID and a 20% drop. So the math itself works out really, really well at 245,000. And that's where that roof line, you can kind of ignore it, and you can ignore a bunch of this bullshit because you're just going to floor on top of this. Like, you don't even remove that flooring. Just save the fees on that. Floor on top of it. Do the trim. Do the receptacles. Do the switches. Do the lighting. And Bob's your uncle, man. And like the kitchen, you can fix this too. Like that's, you can see the dryer plug there. You don't need to do that. You can totally move the dryer over here. Or sorry, I'm stove plug. The 240 is what I'm really talking about. But you can have a nice countertop there and move the stove over here and make a little L, right? That's what I would do. That's totally what I would do. And you can have uppers all along this wall and uppers all along here and uppers all along here. And you don't even need to skip the backsplash. I'm actually really sorry. I didn't know that backsplash was going to make me so salty, but boy, did it ever, eh? I'm sorry about that. Really nice narrow hallway. That's actually kind of awful, but it is what it is. And again, floor on top of this, subfloor stuff here. Drywall here, not a big deal. It looks hideous, but that's not a problem. Financing is going to be a problem. Okay. When you look at a listing like this, financing is the problem. Okay. Because when you go to the bank, they're like, oh, let's see some pictures of the listing. And then they look inside and they're like, Jesus Christ. If you don't actually do this renovation properly, there's no way. So this says quick possession available, sold as is. All right. I like that. I like that a lot. So guys, if you want to put an offer in on this, I think this is a good idea, right? Because 50 grand in here is going to make a bang up difference. And you are absolutely going to be able to get good rents, right? Like this is actually pretty nice. I'm liking this a lot. And it is off of Hamilton Road. It's not like Hamilton Road's a piece of shit. And we literally talk about that every week, how terrible Hamilton Road is. Let me just pull this up here. I don't know why it does this. Like I don't actually want directions to this. I just want to see it on the map, please. Hamilton Road's terrible, right? But if you go off of Hamilton Road and actually get up into these blocks here, it's not that bad. It's literally just Hamilton Road that's the real problem. It's where all the shitty houses are and the crack houses. But once you get up here and into the neighborhood, it's actually pretty nice. It's super quaint, super quiet. You can see that here on the Google Street View. And this is why I like to use tools like this. Is like, this is a nice little neighborhood. Like seriously, think about that. For 244 in one of the best, fastest growing cities in Canada, I'm into that. I like that a lot, actually. So I'll leave you with that thought. And then our very last one that we're going to look at here is also in London. And it's listed for 288. Now, I do suspect this is a pricing strategy where like they're trying to get a lot of interest and a lot of offers on this one, just based on it actually being already in pretty damn good shape. Like, you know, we can always critique what state it's really in, but this is a nice house, right? Like it's fine. It's not in disrepair the way the other one is. Decent parking. Looks like you got, you got room to park 2 cars side by side there for sure. Nice, cute little hedge thing into the back. I don't love that window jutting out like that, but I mean, whatever. That doesn't actually matter. The light's not a boob light, but still not what we're going for. Okay, $30. Boom. Paint for sure. Okay, door's kind of cute. Cabinets perfectly acceptable. I actually like this. Cute little bar stools there. That works out. Nice open. Like this beam here really does save this room. It fucks up the cabinets because you don't have a lot of cabinetry, but it opens that room up to not feel like it's tiny, which I like. This flooring is perfectly acceptable, right? This is just hardwood. This is fine. It's kind of an older style, but again, it's these weird like brown colors on the wall that's making this look old. If you painted this a different color, it wouldn't be terrible at all. And especially if we're talking about renting, right? And rent on this, like, I mean, this is like, we're looking at $2,300, right? Okay, the wallpaper, that's a problem. Fix that. You got to fix that. There's no way. There's just no way. And you know what? I don't love that either. The laundry room being in this little bedroom space. And then boom, boom, here it comes. Boom, here it comes. Second kitchen. That's a second kitchen, baby. That's a basement bedroom. And what is that? That, my friends, is egress. That's a fire escape. Looks legal to me. That's not a fire escape. That is not legal. That there, not bueno. Okay. You got to have a fucking exit for fire. And that's a real valid concern. So just do it. Right. So when you buy these buildings, you're like, oh yeah, we're just going to put a bedroom in here. No, you're not. You're going to pay $3 or $4 grand and you're going to get a goddamn window in there so that people can escape if there's a fire. Jeez. There's escape here too. There's egress. Great basement, little space there. Doesn't look like there's a separate entrance. Maybe there is here actually at this door, and that would make it perfect. We'll have to read the description for that. Let's see if it's in the description. Sought out area in the Medway area, short drive from the university. So maybe you could market this to students as well. Impressive property with a 3-bedroom house on the main floor, full kitchen, in-suite laundry for added convenience. Step into blah, 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 blah. Separate entrance to the basement. That's what we're looking for. Boom, right there. Simple. That's easy. This deal's a no-brainer. The only problem is what price are they going to sell? And again, when we look at max allowable offers, so it's 288 right now, right? It's not going to sell for 288. So let's try 350, right? And we don't have to do anything to it. We'll just put zeros there. And then it's really just going to come down to rent. Like, what do we think the rent actually is going to be? And I'd say because it's kind of duplex like that, you can at least get 18 aside. So that's 36, right? 3,600. Golden. So what do we think it actually will cost us? Let's go see if 420 works. Yeah, I mean, fuck, you can pay like 450 on this, right? You can pay like 450 on this as long as you can get close to 3,600 bucks and you're still like really in the green, right? What's 450? 450. I mean, you're making 500 bucks a month at 450 if you can get 36. So the real question is what can you get for rent? But if you can get 36 on that, which is pretty conservative, I think, you're golden to pay up to like 450. So that's where this listing's really fascinating because it's got the built-in security that Chatham doesn't really have. It's a little more stable of a market and way more attractive in my opinion. So that's it, guys. That's a wrap on today's content, really. But I just wanted to show you kind of the difference. I know we picked a theme of like sticking under 300,000. But my point was that my overarching point, the real summary of today is that purchase price is not actually the important thing, right? Like purchase price only matters in relativity to the revenue that you can generate. And then you have to factor in everything else. Like, is the market better, right? Somewhere else, because the same price in two different markets makes a big difference. If it was the same price in London or Chatham, I will pick London 100 million times out of 100 million times. If it's even a similar price, I'm going to London. If it's the worst neighborhood compared to a mediocre neighborhood in Chatham, I'm buying London, right? Because the upside potential. I think that there's more upside potential. And so buying at that purchase price, knowing that the rents are strong, you would still make the London purchase. And I guess a broader point of this is right now, like some markets have really appreciated and some large markets have fallen down to the floor. Right. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, there's a floor price. And that's actually what makes those cities so fascinating. Is Chatham, if something goes wrong right now, I bet those prices can drop like 40% overnight like that, flick of a finger. Like somebody could drop those prices a lot by, one major employer leaves or like, there's an oil spill. Like, I don't know what the hell would happen in Chatham, but if something bad there happened, it would affect the market greatly because there's so many people affected by any one change. In London, it's so well insulated based on employment, based on population growth, based on infrastructure development, based on vacancy rates, based on the rent. And so if you're sitting here right now and you're watching from Alberta or you're watching from Saskatchewan or you're watching from British Columbia, it's worthwhile to think about that in your markets too. Like, is Fort Mac really the play? Right? Because somebody said they're here from Fort Mac. Fort Mac has this really interesting ability to yo-yo, which can be great if you can time the market. But if you don't know how to time the market, and just remember everybody else is trying to as well, it can be scary compared to something like Calgary, where we know the employment's going to be there. We know the population growth is probably likely to continue. We know that there's less adverse reactions to things that are very centralized like oil. $500 a month. was a good deal there in London. So anyways, guys, I hope that this video was valuable. I hope I answered everybody's questions in the comments, and I really appreciate everybody that participated today. As Peter came on when I had to go deal with the crazy doorbell situation, I know he was mentioning the Instagram channel. So go follow us over there, because we share a bunch of like daily content over there, right? We only get to hang out here once every week, but we're on Instagram all the time. And you can always reach out to me. It's Adam JD Martin, all platforms. And if you like the calculator I was using today, jump on my website. It's adamjdmartin.com/learn, and you'll be able to download that calculator there for free. And I hope to see you guys back next week. I'm gonna have another ranch water. I'm on vacation. It was great to see you all. Thanks for hanging out.